Suburban Coyotes, Chapter 1. Hello, Hampton, New Jersey. The year was 1981. Ronald Reagan would become our 40th president and would later survive being shot at close range by John Hinckley Jr. The first DeLorean rolled off the assembly line. Iran released 52 American hostages after more than 1 year. MTV, the first round-the-clock video music channel, made its debut on cable television. And I was about to turn 13 when my mother moved herself, my younger brother, and I to a little second-floor apartment in a little town of Hampton, New Jersey. The name Hampton suggests an upper Chelant area, but it was nothing of the sort, really. There was a lot of blue-collar, not ghetto-ridden or dangerous town by any means. It was a small town, and it was a quiet town. To get to our apartment, you entered through a front door that led up a set of stairs that smelled so bad I held my breath whenever I came and went. In the front room there was an old window that overlooked the street, and directly across was a tiny general store on the corner with a big concrete set of stairs that kids my age would sometimes sit and park their bikes. You could watch the cars going up and down the street, and by up and down, I mean the entire town was built on a giant hill, as was most of central Jersey, particularly Hunterdon County. At the time, I had no idea I was a mere 45-minute drive or so from New York City. I had no idea I was anywhere, really, except another 45-minute drive in the opposite direction from my hometown of Lambertville, New Jersey, just outside the capital of Trenton, which was no metropolitan prize. I'm actually kind of from a lot of places in New Jersey. We moved a lot, but Lambertville was the small city we ping-ponged in and out of for, 13 years. Just behind our apartment was the train tracks that took people to and from northern New Jersey and New York. There was no real parking lot, so there were always cars parked up in the dark, dusty stone area. At night, I could see the commuters getting off the train in the dark, holding briefcases and coats, starting their cars to drive their tired selves home, only to come back in the early morning, much earlier than I would be awake. In the near future, I would spend a lot of time on the train tracks. This is where I would do a lot of things for the first time, most of them illegal. The first two kids I met in town were sitting on the stairs of the corner store. My brother and I approached them, and someone said the usual, "Hey, what's up?" And someone else said, "Hey, nothing much," and I guess we were friends. The two were Ben and Jason. One of them, Ben, would turn out to be someone in the picture further in the story. Ben lived across the street from me in a big white house. He had a few sisters and I think an older brother. His younger sister, Tammy, would also later be associated with us to some extent or another. Of course, we moved to Hampton just like we did all the other places we lived, right in the middle of the school year. Nothing sucks more for a kid than to have to be the new face that everyone sees. It's kind of a shitty feeling when you're new and you don't know anyone. A feeling I don't really think there's a name for. We did it year after year, sometimes twice in a school year. So here we were again, walking up the sidewalk to get to the next new school. It was an elementary school, but 7th and 8th grade were combined with it, and it was still a really small school. I don't think there were barely 20 or so kids in my class. I can still remember a lot of their faces and some of their names. If I remember correctly, we called the principal Pocket Pool, because he was always juggling his man junk in his pockets with some loose change. It was so obvious there was no hiding it. We would laugh and laugh, but I'm not sure he knew we were on to him. I was such a horrible student, I couldn't pass the 8th grade due to severe absence and ridiculously low grades. Why? I'm not sure. I wasn't the brightest bulb in the class, but I wasn't dumb either. I didn't have any learning disabilities, but for some reason that year, I stopped feeling the need to apply myself in school, and never did again until I was an adult. The school were nice enough to let me graduate with the class in my graduation ceremony on condition that I did summer school and passed my coursework. When my name was called at the ceremony, I walked up to the stage like everyone else did, except the little diploma book they handed me was empty, and it was kept discreet. Thinking back on it, this was an incredibly compassionate and thoughtful idea someone had, and I was really happy my grandparents actually drove up from Lambertville to see me graduate. I kept my end of the bargain. I did attend summer school and completed coursework, although the majority of the bookwork seemed to be more of a 4th grade level or so, but I wasn't complaining. For the most part, I was given my instructions on a daily basis and was left to myself in a rear classroom for 3 or maybe 4 hours a day. Usually by the time my day was over, there were already some kids playing basketball on the court right outside the window, and I would just turn in my coursework and head out to join them. But not just anyone. I was very selective of who I approached and joined in with, especially if there were kids I didn't know all that well. Later, I actually had more than one tell me how they would hate me because they thought I came off as arrogant by avoiding getting in the mix with them sometimes. I was shocked to hear it, due to the truth being I was massively insecure until I knew someone and felt comfortable they were my friend. This was an obvious byproduct of being moved from town to town, school to school, always being the new stranger, along with the ridicule, torment, and bullying that went along with it. By this time I had met another schoolmate named Ron. We became friends fast with a bond of art and drawing. Ron and I would go off to little hideouts and smoke cigarettes. The dugouts, the woods, and of course the railroad tracks. We cut school here and there just to go down to the tracks, hang out, bullshit, and smoke. Ron would bring a big cassette boombox, when he had batteries, that was. There was always a Led Zeppelin tape on hand. Ron liked Led Zeppelin a lot, and some other newer and older bands like Iron Maiden, Ronnie James Dio, and Black Sabbath. Ron was a really good-natured kid, but he actually looked the part of an 80s teenage rebel with his trademark black heavy metal band t-shirt, blue jeans, and thick black hair. Like kids that age do, we were discovering different social groups like the preppies and the heads. Ron and I were wannabe heads. The alligator shirt insignia was worn by the preppies, and around this time the Ocean Pacific brand t-shirts and apparel were also pretty popular. Most of the preppies we knew were from other towns like Highbridge, Califon, and Lebanon, New Jersey. Ron and I had become close friends. Probably the closest friend I'd had up until that point. We both loved to draw. He would bring records to my house and we would draw for hours on end, perfectly content to do so. Ron liked to draw heavy metal album covers, and I was a big Kiss fan, so I liked to draw them a lot too. We would talk about what it would be like to have a lot of money, like $1,000. We thought for $1,000, you could get something really nice, like a van. Then we could paint on the outside of it. Ron would put Iron Maiden on his van, and I would put a Kiss mural on mine. As we would draw along, we talked about girls a lot, which ones we liked in town and from school. We figured sooner or later we had to get some girls in the picture. We figured there had to be beer in the picture, dim lights, and a stereo playing Led Zeppelin. Early on we decided to cut school. It was a cool, fun, and defiant idea, so we planned it out the night before. Do we have enough cigarettes to last us all day? Yep. Well, we're ready. We went to a clearing site where really big cement pipes are stored. You know, the ones that are moved by cranes and you can stand up inside of them? Well, we thought they would be a great cover for us and we could jump around on them for fun. Not only was it the middle of the northeast winter, but, as it turned out, it was the coldest day that was ever known to man or beast. To intensify the cold wind chill, not only did the giant pipes not shelter us from the wind, but they were actually nothing but big wind tunnels dropping the wind temperatures for us. We were freezing and time was dragging. We realized this idea kind of sucked. Finally, we ran out of things to do and talk about. So we decided to go home early and say that we were sent home sick with a stomachache. Ron lived a few blocks up the hill from me. His dad was a truck driver whom I'd actually never met and never caught a glimpse of. I would imagine his line of work left him a little ghostly, as his truck would be parked in the driveway once in a blue moon. When it wasn't, I guess he would be on the road. Ron's mother was a nice enough woman who I had said hello to maybe once or twice, but that was okay with me because I was usually shy around other kids' parents. I think it had something to do with growing up in the lower class, kind of being the scurfy kid parents might not want around. Looking back, I think it's safe to say I had a massive complex. His mom seemed busy keeping the house together and called her son Ronnie as she was bringing in the groceries or tending to the kitchen. The family dog was a big German shepherd named Duchess who would stand behind the screen door barking at you if she saw you. Duchess was intimidating, and it was easy to tell she could break through the screen door to get at you if she wanted to. Once inside the house, provided you were escorted in, Duchess was a really nice dog. I loved petting her. I thought it was cool that Ron lived with his family in a big white house with a garage and a dog. Ron also had an older brother, John, who had joined the Army National Guard. I met John once when Ron and I cut school and hid out at his house. We were in Ron's room sitting on his bed, petting Duchess, when Ron told me to stay put and he would be right back. He went across the hall to John's bedroom and came back to open his hand and show me a joint his brother had given him. It was the first time I ever saw a real joint. I was actually kind of nervous. It was exciting to do something we weren't supposed to, but I didn't know what was going to happen when we smoked it. I guess you got high, like in a Cheech and Chong movie. Ron told me he had smoked once or twice before and told me what it was like for him. But whether I wanted to try it or not, being scared and backing down in front of your friend wasn't an option. So we smoked it in front of a window fan to draw out the smell. I'm not so sure we were actually high from it, but I know we at least had a psychological effect, and we cracked up laughing for quite a while and had a great time interpreting Dutch's view of the world. Our fun was slightly interrupted when Brother John, looking pretty grown up and buff, came into the room with a look of dismissal and said, "Oh, what are you, stoned?" I thought, hey, that's kind of weird. He's the one who gave it to us. When it was time to leave before Ron's mom got home, I walked out the back door, down the hill, up in the apartment, and into my bedroom. I put on my Van Halen 2 cassette and my old $17 Emerson tape player, laid back on my bed, and thought about the day. All in all, I'd have to say that was the most fun we ever had cutting school, and Ron and I kind of had a new bond in our friendship after smoking pot together. I guess we thought we were actually cool, and that we had graduated to a new level of juvenile delinquency. I never saw Ron's brother John again. Ron and I were birds of a feather for a while. We even went to a store called Lenco in nearby Clinton, New Jersey, to get our ears pierced. Lenco was kind of like the local Walmart before Walmart exploded all over the U.S. We heard you could get the piercing for free if you bought an earring. I guess that's all we needed to hear. We were sure we could find an earring for less than $5, maybe even 2 of them. We were the first ones in our pack to get our ears pierced, especially being at the time, I think we were the only ones in our pack. Ron went first. He stepped behind the counter where a lady loaded an earring stud and a big yellow gun that kind of reminded me of a big chunky Star Trek phaser. Ron had a piece of ice, and he had held it on his earlobe for about 5 minutes like the lady said to do. It seemed to be forever, and Ron was finally up. He sat on the stool and looked like he was actually holding on for dear life, white-knuckling the edges of the stool. It probably wouldn't have been such a big deal, but the lady said slowly and apprehensively, "Okay, are you ready?" Then went in to shoot his earlobe in slow motion, giving Ron way too much time to think about it. Click. Ow! I was in hysterics. Here Ron was stronger than me, had some post-puberty muscles, with big thick black eyebrows that kind of made him look a little mean, and he squirmed around the jewelry desk holding his ear like a wounded animal caught in the trap. I hated to see it go down like that for the poor kid. So with that in mind and seeing clearly it was going to hurt, I got my mind ready. No matter how hard it hurts, I'm not going to show even the slightest bit of pain. I'll just clench my teeth and go stone cold. Now it's my turn, and I sat in the stool. Ron was staring at me smiling as if I were to get what he just got and he couldn't wait. The lady leaned in, grabbed my ear, click, done. I felt nothing. I didn't even use the ice. I asked her, "Is it in?" Insert story of my life. "Yep, all done," she said. I asked Ron, man, what the hell, were you messing with me?" "No, it hurts," he said. He claimed he must have more nerves in his ears than I do. Maybe. Every time I saw him after that, I would grab my ear and run around in circles like I was on fire. But hey, we had earrings. I guess we thought we were cool. So we thought, anyway. And we loved walking around town showing them off. And believe me, like most kids that age, we did a lot of walking, taking turn carrying Ron's big heavy boombox. But not everyone in town was walking anymore. Soon enough, the moped craze took off. Anyone whose parents had any money was on a moped. You didn't need a license, and I think you had to be 15 or 16 years of age. It seemed like the most popular model was the red Honda moped, but my favorite was the Motorbicane. They were usually silver and had a gas tank right up in the center like a motorcycle. I thought they looked so cool. Not only did I daydream of having one, but there was a girl who had one and lived on the other side of town. She was my first crazy crush when I moved to Hampton. Her name was Wendy, and I was madly in love with her for a while. She had thick blonde hair, and she was a little curvy. When I saw her going by on her Motorbicane, I thought it was just a picture of heaven. I don't think she ever knew I was in a mad crush for her, and I was a late bloomer. She was a budding young woman already, and I was still a boy, really. In any case, I guess it didn't matter much. She was from a seemingly perfect family. One older brother named Randy, and one daughter that was Wendy. Hell, they even lived in a white house with a green lawn right across the street from a church, no less. I was a skinny, broke kid who wore dirty clothes and even had a bad case of acne to polish off my look. Not to mention, I didn't even have my own moped. I don't think she would have been caught dead hanging around with the likes of me. And if she would, I'm sure her parents would straighten her out pretty quickly. But she would never know because I didn't have the guts to try and talk to her. I don't know whatever happened to her. Like many kids, friends or not, she would become someone I would just see less and less of as time went on, and eventually never again.